Warning: this podcast may contain spoilers as well as coarse language. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hi everyone, this is Shai here with the Our Anime Podcast. We have a really special pod topic today in light of Monogatari Part 3 coming out, it came out. It's still coming out. And then we have Owari Monogatari Season 2 coming out this summer. We have the Monogatari pod. Woo!
Ooh.
So I'm here with our resident Monogatari fan, Kavrik. How you doing?
Hello, I'm doing great with the new mic. I'm feeling pumped up.
New mic hype. And then today we actually have two special guests. We're joined by Cyrus.
Hello, everybody.
And we're joined by Dr. Whoops.
Hi, good to be here.
We're not talking. You're the only one who will be talking in this pod, so we can see Best Girl light up every time.
Best Girl's abs.
Best Girl. That's the best icon. So we're just not. You're just talking the whole time, so we can watch Kaiki in action.
Sure.
So
Glorious.
So we're gonna do something a bit different than usual, where normally we just kind of go down and talk about the show broadly, but today we wanted to talk a lot about the characters, which is what I think we can all agree really makes Monogatari such a great show. So
Oh, yes.
yes. So I guess we could start off with I think all of our favorite character, which would be the Senjougahara. So Cav, what do you think about Senjougahara?
Hitagi is a really interesting character, Hitagi Senjougahara, because she doesn't really fall into any major character archetype, because I've seen people who called her Kudere or Tsundere or even Yandere in her relationship with Kayomi Araragi. So she feels unique, and there are many characters these days who can behave kind of like Hitagi, I suppose. And I just really enjoy her relationship with Araragi and how she teases him, and just her really deadpan humor. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think that's a huge selling point. I guess I had an interesting opinion. My opinion of her changed interestingly over the course of the show. Because I remember starting it, and I don't know if you guys felt this when you started the show. She really comes on very strong. I mean, as we all remember in the first episode.
Very first scene, she staples the inside of Araragi's mouth.
Yeah, that's an amazing way of saying hello to someone who catches you. And then, so I was kind of shocked by that. I guess at the time I was thinking, pretty rude way of greeting someone. I'm not really a fan of this. And then we see, the second episode with her character arc kind of coming full circle, and you can see, there's how much more there is to her as a person, the ghosts of her past coming to life, and then solving that situation. And then, I guess, throughout the rest of Bakemonogatari, you get to see her more in, different aspects. We get to see her be, a friend of Araragi's, not attacking him, but she has some, very funny verbal sparring with him. And then we get to see her from the eyes of, another classmate. And then we get to, I guess my favorite scene in the series, the notorious Starry Sky scene, which I still think is one of the, one of the most, What were you going to say?
It's the iconic scene of the series.
Yeah, not only in the series, I think it's pretty iconic in itself, not just in the respective series. But anyway, go on.
Yeah, as you guys said, it's a really iconic scene. It's the perfect scene for emotional vulnerability. And it's great to see how we've come so far from her stapling Araragi to pouring her heart out. And, I guess that line, this, what did she say? It's,
Which line in particular?
It's I can give you me, a cute classmate, and this starry sky. That's all I have, but that's what I'd give you. And that's still such an amazing line. So, and then by then I was full team Gahara. She was great, and she's remained one of my characters ever since.
Well, I think my favorite line of that scene is actually shortly after that, when she says, well, the other thing I have to give you is my body, but I was almost raped once, and I'm really uncomfortable with the idea of doing with you what he tried to do to me, because I'm afraid that I'd hate you for it, and right now what I'm most afraid of is losing you. I think that is the moment at which she became one of my all-time favorite characters. And I think one of the things that's often overlooked about what makes her so great is that she's a very accurate and sympathetic depiction of a sexual assault survivor, which is a very rare thing in anime.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't usually the two tropes are like the two sides of the mind break trope, where they either go crazy or they revert to a childlike state.
Go full berserk.
Yeah. Neither of which happened with her. She stays as a normal person, but she puts up all of these emotional and mental defenses around herself. And what's so significant about the Starry Sky scene is she finally lowers those defenses and says, even though ever since I regained my weight, I've come to terms with my past, I'm not over it yet. I love you and I want to be with you, but please just be patient until I'm comfortable enough to let this happen again.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most interesting and most beautiful things about her character, is that she's both a very, very strong presence and a very strong personality, but at the same time also very fragile inside because of what happened to her and because of the events in her past. And I think that makes her feel such a... It's quite a strong contrast, but it totally makes sense, and it just works, and that makes it so interesting. And like Kavrik said, that people have called her tsundere, people have called her yandere, and she doesn't really fall in any predetermined tropes, because she's such a multifaceted character that she's really a little bit of everything, and I think that makes her very interesting and very, very unique.
She's the Gahara Dairy.
Right. Especially because from second season on, she's just straight dere all the time whenever she appears.
Yeah, and the second season is also interesting because there is Koi Monogatari, Hitagi End, which is my favorite arc of the series, and it once again highlights the fragility of Hitagi, who has no other options than to face her nemesis, Kaiki, and ask for help. It's a very interesting dynamic, and that's why this arc is among my favorite ones.
Yeah, and
Right.
I think what's also really interesting about Gahara and that arc, because we always see her from Koyomi's perspective, and Monogatari uses the unreliable narrator to kind of twist the events in the way Koyomi perceives them. And then in Hitagi End, we switch to Kaiki's perspective, and we get to see Gahara in a very different light. She's a lot less, she's different.
Less intimidating.
In a way, because Kaiki's perception of her is a bit more, he sees her more like a child, and Koyomi sees her like a queen almost,
Yeah.
this big, powerful woman in a way. So it's a very interesting contrast to see her from a different perspective without necessarily being a different character.
Well, we see her from three different perspectives. There's Araragi's, where she's a queen, like you said, she's terrifying and he's in awe of her all the time. And then the second one we see is from Hanekawa's perspective in the Tsubasa Tiger arc, when Hanekawa doesn't see her the same way Araragi does, obviously, but she still kind of idolizes her and looks up to her, because Senjougahara is someone with the force of personality that Hanekawa wishes she had.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, it's night and day between Hanekawa's view of her and Senjougahara's view of her, because in the scene where, the infamous shower scene with the two of them together, is
Great scene.
in
It's a great
the
scene.
first arc of second season, yeah. But part of what makes it such a great scene is that it's a mirror of a scene from the second episode of the show, when Araragi first goes to her apartment and he sits out in the bedroom while she takes a shower, and then she comes out and spends 10 minutes just ripping into him while getting dressed. but in the scene between her and Hanekawa, she says a lot of like similarly inappropriate and biting things to Hanekawa, like
when
she
she
said to Araragi. What's that?
She like pretty much said that she like doesn't have she like adapts her personality to everyone, right? Like she kind of like has no flavor. She wouldn't like she doesn't want to season her food. She'll just kind of take what's in front of her.
That's Hanekawa. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what she said about it. Okay.
Right. But none of what she says to Hanekawa in that scene comes across as sarcastic and insulting the way it does when she says it to Araragi. It's like clearly just lighthearted teasing.
Yeah, in a way. I can agree with you. There's one question I want to ask you. We know that kinda Monogatari is a story of reliance and over-reliance as well. Do you feel Hitagi relies on Araragi too much or not?
I don't think I've got.
You can go first.
I don't think I got that feeling from it necessarily. Not as much as some of the other characters do, because there's also Sengoku and Hanekawa who both kind of also rely on Araragi in a way. So I don't think she does it any more than most of the other characters do.
No, if anything,
Yeah.
I think it's the opposite. Like he relies on her way too much.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Especially when you can see, I guess in the Nadeko Snake arc in second season, you know, Araragi is kind of, I think it's like when Nadeko was attacking him, and then Senjo calls him and like has the conversation with Nadeko and like convinces her to let them live until graduation. I'd say that's a good example of her kind of taking all of the support she got from Araragi and her friendship with Kanbaru and Hanekawa, and then becoming a stronger person and like solving the problems not only for herself but for everyone involved in that situation. Like when she made that phone call, you knew like shit was gonna go down, like the bar was raised, and then we got that great conversation between her and Nadeko where it's one of my favorites actually, where Nadeko says something like, in another situation we could have been friends.
Yes.
And Senjo's like, nah, fuck that, you suck, like like I don't like cute girls, fuck you. Like
Yeah.
So I think that and her going to Kaiki was it. I mean, she's relying on Kaiki, but it's not. It doesn't feel like she's letting him solve all of her problems. Like she had to put in a lot of work to save everyone's lives in that situation, and I think it shows just how strong she was in the end.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think because we're just on the subject of her and Araragi, we might as well jump straight into their relationship. And particularly, I'm curious what your all opinion is on what the big speculation about the series recently has been, which is ever since Hana and Suki, the idea that at the end of the series, the two of them aren't going to be together, and whether you think that A, that'll happen, and B, whether it should happen, and if they're actually like right for each other or not.
That's an interesting question. Even since second season, I believe, I have felt that the final boss for Kayomi would be the question, or rather choice between staying with Hitagi or staying with Shinobu.
Yeah, I felt that too.
Which are two of the main characters of the series for him, and there is a lot of thing to it, like the choice between real life and supernatural, and like eternal and just some passion, some love with Hitagi. So yeah, I believe I have felt. We know that Hana Monogatari, Surrogate Evil, is the last arc of the series in a chronological way, and what I felt is actually Shinobu is kind of distant to Kayomi now, and I believe that's how the series should end. I do not feel. I feel like Hitagi is a true end for Kayomi, and the series has been pushing all the way to and Tsuki Monogatari especially, has been pushing to the fact that he should give up on his supernatural abilities and that they do more harm to him than good.
So you think that he'll choose Senjougahara over Shinobu
Yeah,
in the end?
he should.
So you think it'll be a Hitagi end?
Sorry, what?
You think it'll be a Hitagi end?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I prefer that because I'm a big fan of their whole relationship, but I think it depends on just where the series goes in terms of Koyomi's development, because at the time of the airing series, and especially at the time of Bake, Hitagi was definitely the right person and the person Koyomi needed to develop further and to get over his problems. So at least for the adapted series, Hitagi is definitely looking to be the right person for Koyomi as opposed to Shinobu. But yeah, I think I'd have to see more to really be conclusive on that, of course.
Yeah, I think it'll be an interesting kind of conclusion to the series based on, I think it'll come down to the person that Araragi wants to be. Like, does he want to be kind of the grounded human being who kind of like accepts, I guess, for lack of a better term, kind of like accepts reality and is able to shoulder like his own burdens and become his own person? And I can see him doing that with Hitagi without the supernatural aspect. Or is he going to be the kind of guy who, blows off exams to go to the temple and like kind of
murdered
and get casually murdered before taking an exam? Like and I think it'll just come down to like the person he wants to be. I think it's interesting because I would think that he would end up with Hitagi. That seems like the natural progression of things. But I think it's interesting to think, like, does he really need to make a choice? Like, is it really going to come down to one or the other? I think it's something fun to speculate on. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that, but I think it'll be interesting along the way.
Well, as much as I want them to stay together and hope they do because I love them, I actually don't think they will in the end. I think that he will end up choosing immortality with Shinobu over normal life with Senjo. It's largely because in Suki Monogatari, it reveals that he's becoming more and more vampiric again because he's overused his abilities whenever he fought Nadeko during second season. And Kaganui basically tells him, you have to stop using these or you'll become a vampire again. It's unavoidable, and if you do, I'll kill you. And he tells her, oh, yeah, of course, I won't do it again. And then as soon as she leaves, he says that if someone I care about is in trouble and I need to put myself in harm's way to save them, then that's what I'm going to do, like 100% of the time, which is 100% what Araragi is. So I think that in the end, he will do exactly that. He'll push himself to the limits of what his vampire-human duality can take, and he'll, intentionally or not.
So you're saying Koyomi in the end would be an ultimate sacrifice, right?
Basically, yeah. In order to save the people he cares about, specifically probably Senjougahara, I think he'll sacrifice his ability to actually be with her in any meaningful way.
But I don't think that fits the theme of the series very well, because a big theme of it is Koyomi accepting himself and accepting the fact that he has become what he is, and he is learning not to put others before himself all the time. So yeah, I'm not sure about that, because a big theme of the series is that Koyomi is slowly regaining a sense of self-worth and thinking, maybe I shouldn't really kill myself for the others. So for him to do that in the end, or to give up his humanity in the end, would be interesting. And
it'd kind of be going back to Kizu, right? He would be going back to like the start at Kizu, where he was willing to sacrifice himself for Shinobu.
Yeah, so he'd be going full circle, and his development would just be turning back to what it was at the beginning, which I don't think I see happening, because he's heading definitely towards a different ending.
Yeah, I suppose I could see it going either way, honestly.
It's very much up to whatever happens in the rest of the series.
I guess it brings up an interesting transition. Since we're already talking about Araragi, we could talk about what do you guys think about Aragi's sense of I guess to label it like his white knight syndrome aspect. What do you guys think of him as someone who needs to be able to save others, who wants to be able to protect everyone around him? Like, what are your takes on that?
It's an interesting take, and I like how it develops and explores the theme. So we start with Baki Monogatari, where all the girls are basically introduced, and Kayomi tries to save everyone. Like, there are five arcs, 5 girls, and Kayomi goes a long way to save all of them. But then second season comes, and actually it's not as beautiful and amazing as it was in Baki Monogatari, because suddenly Tsubasa is being rejected, Mayoi is leaving, is gone basically, and Nadeko, well, we all know what happened to Nadeko, right?
Yeah.
Also, Hana Monogatari, which is technically a part of season 2, is also shows us that Surga is basically moving on as well, and all the girls are learning how to live without reliance on Kayomi, and in that sense, is it possible to save everyone, and were they even in need of saving? I guess they were, but at the same time, there is a limit to be saved, and the girls felt that limit, and they stopped relying when it was too late, I guess, because everyone, they've got their troubles, they've got their struggles, but at the same time they had the courage to say goodbye and move on.
The courage to say goodbye.
The courage to say goodbye.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the white knight thing of Koyomi is pretty interesting. I think mainly he does it not to necessarily save the others because he cares about the others that much, because, I mean, he saves Itagi like 10 minutes after he met her, so so I don't think he's doing it necessarily for the others, but more for himself, because in Kizu he loses his humanity, quite literally, and I think it's a bit of a coping mechanism for him to say, well, I'll save all these people because then they'll make me more human, and they'll make me worthy again, because he feels like he has lost his humanity, like which is a big theme of the series.
Mm-hmm.
And he wants to be relied on because that makes him feel like he has a purpose again. And yeah, it's a way for him to balance out his vampiric side with a very white knighty human good guy side.
Yeah.
I think it's a really accurate, important observation to say that he saves people not for the people but for himself, because this is something we talked about a lot near the beginning of the rewatch recently, is when Senjougahara confesses to him in episode 5, she says that she fell in love with him because he saved her not for her, but because he would save anybody. But the issue with that is the way he goes about saving people and the way he views it as his duty or responsibility to save them rather than just wanting to protect the people he cares about is super unhealthy in a lot of ways, because he grows a lot between the first season and second season. You were saying earlier, like, he actively turns down Hanekawa because he's realized that, like, it's not his job to make her happy and stuff like that. But I think the most important moment in his development from second season on is at the end of second season, when, like, Kaiki has just finished talking down Nadeko from trying to kill him, and Araragi waltzes up the stairs to the temple and is about to fuck everything up. And Kaiki turns around and tells him, like, you need to get the fuck out of this girl's life because you're the one who ruined her.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
that. I didn't even realize, like, how much of a white knight he was until, like, Kaiki was like, dude, you need to back the fuck off. Like, that was a great, like, moment, because we've only seen things from his perspective, and then when Kaiki comes in and is like, look what I just, like, I saved your ass, don't ruin it. Like, back off.
Mm-hmm.
But that moment, which could have been, like, a great teaching moment for Araragi, instead he took it the worst possible way, and it completely destroyed his worldview and, like, everything that he valued. Because we see in Suki Monogatari that he is back to being as depressed as he ever was. Because, like, he says when he's talking to Tsukihi, when she tells him that Nadeko just got out of the hospital and he barely reacts, she says she thought he would have been super excited, and he's not. He doesn't know what to think about it. And then at the end, when he's talking to Ougi, he tells her that he honestly doesn't believe that anybody is better off for having met him or that he's helped anybody in any way, which is absurd, obviously. But the tiniest amount of failure in anything he tries to do makes him think that everything he's done has been pointless. He completely undervalues any sort of accomplishments that he makes.
Yeah, because I mean, he in the entirety of the series, he's the hero, and then that gives him his self-worth because he feels like he was the one that saved them. But then suddenly Kaiki becomes the hero, and he just feels like it doesn't have to be him that saves them. So really, it just makes him another person that happens to be the one that saves all these people. And I think in that way, the entire with Kaiki makes him kind of realize, even if it's an incorrect realization, that he feels like it doesn't matter anymore, because if he doesn't save them, someone else will.
Right. And not only did he not save them, he actively hurt Nadeko.
It's kind of interesting, too, because with Nadeko, I'd say, I mean, like, looking at it from, like, you know, a third-party perspective, he didn't really do that much himself to kind of, like, ruin her. Like, a lot of it was kind of, like, her being, like, her looking into it a lot. Like, a lot of it was from her own delusions, which is kind of interesting compared to, say, like, you know, a Hanekawa situation where they had an ongoing relationship, somewhat of a flirtation that didn't amount to something, and then she, like, felt she had to get rejected and move on from that. But he was, like, an active participant in her problems. Whereas with Nadeko, it's interesting how it really affected him the most, even though he kind of, like, didn't do that much wrong.
Well, I think he blames himself because he feels that he was leading her on, which might actually be kind of accurate, because he always played dumb whenever she was coming on to him, but there are a lot of hints in the Nadeko Medusa arc that he kind of knew the whole time and just didn't know how to deal with it, so he ignored it.
Yeah, that's true.
I would say also that Nadeko here didn't really matter at all, because no matter what she would have done, Koyami would blame himself anyway for everything that he'd done.
That's true.
He's just like, yeah, that kind of guy. And it's also kind of interesting that he's a white knight and he wants to please everyone. He's a perfectionist. He wants everyone to be saved and everything to be perfect. But at the same time, because he's with Hitagi, he can't answer to the feelings of other girls. So the perfect ending cannot be achieved. So he constantly hurts other people. Even though he knows it, he can't help but be with them anyway. And that's why second season is such a bitter time of saying goodbye, basically.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting dynamic where I think at the beginning of Bake it was interesting because we have all of the girls are kind of not looking for Araragi to help them, but they find themselves in a situation where Araragi helps them and their problems are temporarily solved. And then in second season, we can see, you know, they're not solved. It was kind of like just brushing it under the rug, and then you kind of actually have to come to terms with it. But it is interesting to kind of see that Araragi has to come to terms with like he can't brush his problems under the rugs by saving everyone else. Like he really does have to come to terms with like who he is and who like what his problems are, and he can't just put them off by saving someone else. Like it's time for him to recognize that like he needs to change as well. So it's nice to see that across seasons and see that sometimes it doesn't really work out for him and he has to try something new.
Now, Sha, I know that
I know where this is going.
that you are not an Araragi fan.
I've had an interesting journey with Araragi.
Like
Let's just put it that way.
But aside from that,
I think it's interesting. So I'll say my opinions of Araragi have changed over the course of the series. Like at Bake, I thought he was fine. I liked him and Senjo, like they had great interactions. Nisei, I was not pleased. I didn't like the direction his character went. I'll put it that way. And that kind of continued on into Monogatari second season. And then it got to the point in Owari Monogatari where he really started growing on me once we actually saw his background. Like seeing his interactions with Ougi, which are some of my favorite in the series. You know, we finally get to see like his background story. We get to see more of him as a character. Like I was so excited we got to focus on him. And then I saw Kizu Monogatari, which might be my favorite. The three films might be my favorite part of the series. Kind of weird opinion on that one, and we got to see him in Kizu and just see how completely different he is from the rest of the series. So I think it's an interesting order, but I've come around on him. He's still not he's not my favorite Monogatari character. He's not like one of my favorites, but I've definitely appreciated him more as a character because of what we've seen recently.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's what's very interesting about Owari Monogatari, because during Bake and Nisei and second season, we've seen him really be the White Knight, like we said before, and really try to be the hero. And all we know is that he did have an encounter in the past, but we haven't seen Kizu yet at that time. But with Owari and Kizu, it really delves into why he is the way he is and why he has to be the White Knight. And I think that Owari is very, very good at really getting into the core of Araragi's character.
Yeah, the first half of Owari, which is like technically 3 arcs, but really it's 1 arc, is my favorite of the series. As you can see by how Oikura is my Google Hangout icon. Because it does a lot to put the whole series in perspective. It's the first time in the whole series that we're actually focusing on Araragi rather than his development happening in the background while we focus on another character. It's the only arc in the entire series with no like supernatural enemy to figure out. It shows that like sometimes people's issues are just like normal issues. It's not all because there are these spirits in the world attaching onto them. And it shows that it really showcases Araragi's biggest character flaw, aside from like the flanderized perversion, which is that when he's confronted by a reality that he doesn't like, he completely shoves it under the table and pretends it doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was really interesting when, like, throughout the arc, with the conversations with Ougi, like, how he really just kind of, like, mentally suppressed this somewhat traumatic event of his past. Like, it's, like, him slowly learning that, like, oh, hey, I know this random house. I know this person. Like, it was really interesting because we hadn't really seen, like, you know, as you said, we only see supernatural elements and how they affect a person. But this time it was like he just literally suppressed a traumatic event because he couldn't handle it. And that was really cool to see.
Yeah, and it's pointed out often in the series, or rather pointed out, it's nodded towards that he has a terrible memory, but I think Owari shows that maybe there's more to it than just him having a terrible memory, but rather just him kind of suppressing the things he doesn't like in a way, and just kind of leaving it. Yeah, he just doesn't acknowledge it anymore.
It's like the whole thing with Sodachi. Like, I mentioned before how he kind of ruined Nadeko, but not really. But he is largely responsible for Oikura getting as bad as she was by the time that came around. Because obviously it's not his fault that like her parents abused her or anything, and it's not his fault that as a kid he didn't pick up on that.
Mm-hmm.
But he was so willfully ignorant about the whole thing once the two of them got to high school that that's what pushed her over the edge. And even at the end, when she has her incredible breakdown scene, and he asks her, like, is it really my fault that all of this stuff happened to you? And she, like, no hesitation says yes, which isn't. Then she acknowledges that that isn't true, but he kind of comes to the realization that I could have done something about this and didn't. And he ultimately tries to make her feel better by telling her that he remembers now when she stayed at their house as a child, even though that's a complete lie. He doesn't remember it at all.
It's a nice sense of irony that the one person who actually needed him to save her wasn't saved.
Yeah.
And there is also an interesting observation that in this arc, Kayame was looking at his reflection because just like Kayame, who was, as you have said, was actively suppressing his memories, and so was Sodachi, who was also caught in the delusions, and just was living in the life of make-believe.
She's such a tragic character. Like, if only she existed for more than that one arc, I think she might be my favorite in the series.
Yeah, it's interesting. She's a really cool character, and we've only seen her for a short period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know some people were disappointed that she kind of came out of nowhere, appeared, played some role, and then disappeared once again.
Well, Aragi's probably pissed off she showed up too and then stabbed his hand in classroom. So we can't all get what we want. He's probably not too happy with that. But then we did get the great one-punch Gohara scene.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think.
I also like this arc. To be honest, well, I have rated YAAAAY Monogatari as 10, so obviously I like this arc.
I guess you're okay with it.
Yeah. But some people kind of disliked it, so yeah, I can see why. But at the same time, I believe it's really, as you have said, an interesting development for Kayome and the entire approach.
That's an interesting thing to talk about, since you guys are all like huge fans. I'm like a moderate fan, but what do you guys think are the weaker parts of the series? Like, what are the weaker arcs, the weaker entries? Which one?
Nisei Monogatari entire.
No,
okay.
I think people are being too harsh on Nisei Monogatari. I think there's definitely some parts in the series that are worse, especially Neko Monogatari Kuro, I think, the standalone one.
Oh, I think it's actually
the Golden
great.
Week flashback.
And Tsuki Monogatari, I think, is a rather weak one.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Tsuki Monogatari.
Yeah, I can also agree that Tsuki Monogatari is kinda subpar. It's still good, but not on the same level as others.
The worst is still great in Monogatari, but I think Nisei Monogatari, yeah, I don't think it's the worst. I think it has a lot of, I mean, obviously it's pretty stacked with unnecessary fan shows and whatnot. But I think there's also some fantastic themes in Nisei Monogatari, like the real versus fake dialogue and the comparison between Koyomi's sense of justice and the sense of justice that his sisters have.
Yeah.
And it introduces Kaiki and gives us more of Shinobu, which is the first time in the series. So I think there's a lot of things to love in Nisei Monogatari that are kind of being overshadowed by all the fan service.
It's just Nisei Monogatari gives a really bad name for the franchise in general, at large. So it's kind of hard to see past this. And I would also say that Tsuki Phoenix is not a really good arc in general.
Yeah, I think Tsuki Phoenix is the worst single arc.
Oh, no, I think it... I mean, I rewatched Nisei Monogatari about 4 months ago, I think. And I actually didn't mind it that much as Neko Monogatari or Tsuki Monogatari, because I think there's definitely some interesting themes that come out of the arc, even if the arc itself isn't as interesting. So, because the real versus fake thing, which I find pretty interesting.
But even that is more in Karen B than it is Phoenix.
Yeah, I think that's a Karen B conversation.
There's still a little bit in Phoenix with the whole fact that like Tsukihi isn't actually his sister; she's an oddity. But like Tsukihi's just such a shit character in general. I find it so hard to carry.
Well, yeah, sure, but I mean, the thing with Tsukihi and her being fake and whatnot, I don't really care about that. But the way the arc addresses the whole real versus fake thing, I think is handled pretty well, actually. Not better than most things in the series, but not necessarily the worst. Because there's the conflict between Shinobu and Araragi. Sorry, Shinobu and Araragi versus Kaganui and Ononoki. The duel in the abandoned building. And at the end, they really delve into the whole real versus fake dialogue and Kaiki's perspective on it, and I think that's handled pretty well. I think that scene in particular makes Tsuki Monogatari already, a bit better than, not Tsuki, I mean Tsuki Phoenix. It makes it a bit better than the weakest two, which in my opinion are Tsuki Monogatari and Neko Monogatari.
I just feel in general Nise Monogatari is just way too long for what it tried to accomplish. Like everything could have been suppressed in like 5 episodes max. So
it could have been like a Tsuki Monogatari entry, but like that same kind of length.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's 11 episodes for 2 arcs, which if you average it out like 5.5 each, makes it the 2 longest arcs in the series.
Yeah.
I think Nise Monogatari, I think thematically is about on par with the kind of the average of the series, but because it's so stretched and because it has all these fan service, it does kind of drop down a bit. But I still think people are being a bit too harsh on it overall.
So I have kind of like a hot take on this, which might be somewhat triggering, but so I watched I loved Bakemonogatari because I really love the theme carried out among the different arcs of kind of like, no one can save you but you, like tackling on the oddities and stuff. And I liked the build-up of Araragi's and Senjougahara's relationship in Bakemonogatari. I loved it. It was great. And I feel like Nise Monogatari was kind of like a giant fuck you to that because of like, I think it's not just the fan service. It's not like fan service is the problem. I think the fan service in Nise Monogatari presents a bigger issue of, the timing of it is kind of odd. Like, he just got in a relationship with Senjougahara, and we see him, like, having interesting interactions with the majority of the female cast. And I kind of have a problem with the fan service as it relates to him with other characters, because a huge part of his relationship with Hanekawa is how, he lusts after her, but he's not in love with her. And I don't think that comes across as strongly because a lot of the times it looks like Araragi is lusting after everyone around him. And, to varying degrees of lust or, joking around and stuff. And it's tough to really pinpoint their relationship and see how it's different from the other ones he has just because there's a gratuitous amount of sexual tones everywhere. And I don't... And I would say that if, like, Nise Monogatari, like, the level of fan service happened before Bakemonogatari, I don't think I'd have a problem with it as much. Like, I think it's weird that he got in a relationship and then it felt more like a harem, if that makes sense.
It's pretty clear because Nise Monogatari, I think at least, is I don't think it was ever even meant to be published, or at least that's what I've read.
Yeah.
So and you can definitely tell because it obviously it turns up the fan service quite a bit, and most of the themes discussed in Nise Monogatari really kind of stand outside of the rest of the series and don't really fit with the general theme of the series. The whole real versus fake thing that really never comes back, I believe, or at least not Right, but
Yeah, with
never.
Kaiki.
It rarely comes back, at least, even though it's a big deal in this Monogatari. So you can definitely tell that it's not really
One theme
as
that's
much. It's
definitely
not as essential to the series as the rest. Yeah.
one theme that's definitely never mentioned again, which is another big one in Nisei Monogatari, is Tsukihi's idea that fights are a valid form of communication. Which it does an interesting job of looking at it in that one season, but then nothing of that sort ever comes up for the rest of the series.
That fights are a form of communication?
Yeah.
Well, I guess she didn't see the whole way Araragi was getting communicated later with, like, his ribs open and stuff. Like, I think they got, like his...
he learned a lesson.
He got the message, but... Yeah, I think that's a cool, like, fun line to say, but it would be cool to see that later on. I mean, I guess we could see that in Kizumonogatari with the fight between,
Yeah, that's true, actually.
That's, like, kind of a way, but that's never made to be, like, a focus, so... I guess that's kind of sad that they never picked up on that again. I guess... Oh, that was it.
Okay. So there is a real question. If Kayomi Araragi was not a pervert, would the series be better?
I don't think the problem with Araragi is that he's a pervert. I think the problem is he doesn't have other very unique character traits that go along with it, because, you know, it's like if you describe his personality, besides his actions of, like, you know, his role in the story is he kind of acts like a white knight, but there's more to it because of his inferiority complex, you know, that's like his actions and mindset. But when we talk about his personality, what else do we have? Like, we have his banter with different characters, but that's kind of the standard for the show. So I think he doesn't have other unique traits that set him out amongst the characters in Monogatari and in the anime medium, other than being a pervert. And I think you should have more traits on top of that. So it's not like let's get rid of him being a pervert, it's let's have him have other personality traits to go along with that and create more of a scope of personality. That's my take on it.
I guess that's fair, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what he is as a character is just kind of his actions, and what his development is his character in a way. And yeah, I can agree with the fact that he doesn't have much personality beyond it. It never really bothered me because I just find him to be interesting as a character study in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think, I mean, I'd rather have him kind of have a subdued personality that you don't see much of than one that is like overused or shallow, or have him be like this harem protagonist kind of thing. So I think it's fine the way he is right now, and I think he makes a good protagonist for the series, even if his personality is a bit lacking.
And what about his lolicon tendencies?
I mean, it's a thing.
It's a
I'm
thing.
going to pretend it's not.
It exists.
Okay. I won't argue against that, I suppose.
All right.
Generally, like, in order to keep all my ducks in a row in how I think about Araragi, if a scene contains Hachikuji or one of the Fire Sisters, it doesn't really count. It's not a real scene.
So you're saying you don't like Mayoi, right?
I like Mayoi. I think she's really fun. I think she's one of the least interesting characters in the show.
I have a weird thing with her where I think she's a good character, but I don't enjoy watching her at all. Like, if I broke her down and, like, described her character arc, I'm like, you know what? This is a cool character arc. This is cool. When I see her on screen, I'm just like, get the fuck off. I need to leave.
That's the exact opposite of me.
I have the exact opposite as well. It's basically like, I mean, the banter between Koyomi and Hachikuji, I could watch that all day. I think it's one of the most lighthearted comedic best parts of the series. But I think her arcs are overall weak, and as a character, she doesn't have that much depth compared to the others. But I just think she just carries, as a character, she carries herself just on pure fun value, I think.
And it is worth saying that she does have that personality that I was kind of missing with Araragi. Like, she has a distinct personality, she has her quirks, and you can tell that in the show. Like, you can, like, easily point out what makes her different as a person. And I can appreciate that, even if I don't like watching her as much. But I can say, like, you know, I like the, like, bit my tongue, stuttered gags. Like, those are pretty fun.
It's kind of interesting because Kayame more than once states that Koyomi states that Mayoi is his big friend, and it actually shows because the amount of simple banter with Mayoi is really big, and it's everywhere in the series. It's in the Bake, it's in the Nisei Monogatari, which kind of saves the Nisei Monogatari for me because the banter between Koyomi and Mayoi was really great there, and in second season as well. So it's kind of the point, I believe, that there isn't much depth to their conversation, but because there are so many of them and because they're so lighthearted, there is really this chemistry of friends going on.
Yeah, and that's the biggest part of why I like Hachikoji as a character, even if she's not the most
yeah, she's not the most
complex. Yeah, she's not supposed to be. She represents the lighter, the comedy part of the series, and she does it exceptionally well, in my opinion. And I think every scene with her and Koyomi is really enjoyable to watch. And I think in that way, she fulfills her purpose as a character almost perfectly, even if she's not the most complex or the most interesting in other ways.
Yeah, and it's also kind of curious, as we all know, in the second season of War Monogatari, she makes her comeback, and I wonder what her role is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, the title of her arc, which I'm not actually going to say because there might be some people who don't want to hear it, is not a promising one, to say the least. So I'm really curious to see what'll actually happen in that.
Yeah,
well, I have to look that up.
Yeah,
maybe that it will be that missing point, which is here from taking Mayoi from a good character to a great character.
I mean, it could be. I hope it is.
I mean, I think in general Mayoi's arcs. I mean, both of Mayoi's arcs have been not very great compared to the rest, in my opinion. But I think also they have never really been about Mayoi's development as a character. In the first arc, she's just kind of a way to progress the narrative and to have something happen in which Koyomi and Hitagi can interact and they can do their thing. And in the second arc, she's barely even there. So the third arc could just be something like that again, where she's just kind of.
Well, I mean, the Shinobu time arc is really Mayoi's arc in second
and then
season.
and then her arc is like Shinobu's arc.
That is the weakest arc of second season by far.
The Shinobu time one or her one?
Yeah, the Shinobu time one with the Ball of Darkness.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because that has one of those like really emotional moments that I think a lot of people love, but the arc itself isn't as interesting. I wasn't feeling the emotion during that scene, but that's because I don't care for her that much. But I mean, I hear a lot of people praise it though, and I can see why. It's like a perfectly executed scene, and I think it's like a really nice send off.
Yeah, I think you've told me in the past, like, if it were anybody else but her, you'd be crying, but because it was her, you didn't care.
It was actually amazing how much I could appreciate it because I wasn't invested in it. I was like, whoa, this is this scene is perfect. Like, everything, like, the OP insert as the piano, like, the lines, like, it was a perfectly executed scene, and I would have been bawling if it was anyone else. Not the sisters, to clarify. No.
I mean, that arc, like I said before, I like Mayo as a character, but that arc didn't really touch me in any way, or at least not as much as other emotional parts of the series, because, like I said before, to me, Mayo is just there to kind of bring the comedy to the series and have the banter in it. Mm-hmm. And so I don't have any emotional investments in her other than laughs. So yeah, I didn't really get touched by that scene.
Mm.
That's interesting to hear. That's like cool to hear because it's like, yeah, that's interesting. So
it's also a great scene in its own sense because I believe. Let me check it. Yeah, it's the first time when Koyomi realized that he's not able to save everyone. And it is the first farewell essentially, and that he has to make some decisions, and these decisions will not be the easiest ones.
All right, I want to transition off of that to another character, but I have one of two ways I could go with this. I'm going to let you guys choose: Kanbaru or Ougi. Kanbaru? Okay. So Kanbaru and Hachikuji are really similar characters in a few ways, I think, in that whenever they're on screen, there's typically the most like pure dumb fun moments of the series, and they're the only two in the cast who Araragi can really just like hang out and be friends with without any like history of like bigger emotional connections.
Yeah, you just like bros out with them.
Yeah. So I was curious how you guys think of Kanbaru in relation to other characters. Like, obviously, she's fun, but does she have the same character depth as people like Senjougahara and Hanekawa and them?
I have another hot take. Her arc in Bakemonogatari, Kanbaru Monkey, that's actually my favorite arc in Bakemonogatari, and it might be and it might be one of my favorite arcs like in this series. Like, it's tough to choose because I think it was like a really well executed arc, but I also appreciate that we had a scene with like Araragi, Kanbaru, and Senjougahara, because I noticed in the series we have a lot of one-on-one conversations, or sometimes like two-on-one conversations, but there's not a lot of like group interactions.
One-on-one. Yeah, that's true.
There's not a lot of big group interactions, so you don't really get to see like how would Kanbaru act around Hanekawa? Like, how would Kanbaru act around, like, Kaiki or something? We don't really get that, but we did...
until we do get to see exactly that.
Shit, we did. Oh, shit, meat is meat. I can't believe that. I forgot the meat one. So, until we get to see that...
Meat is all you need to be happy.
Meat is all you need. But yeah, so we do get to see... That's the first time we do get to see, like, Senjougahara interacting with Kanbaru, and it was interesting to see not only, like, the impact that Araragi has on people, but on Senjougahara and how, like, people other than himself see her. And so, I like that. I like her as a character, too. She's, like, really fun. And I like how she can bro out with Araragi and they can, like, cheer on, like, Nadeko taking her clothes off or something. But, I don't necessarily think that she has the same depth as some of the heavy hitters. I think she's in, like, my top 5, but but she's pretty much there on, like, entertainment value and, you know, just having a fun personality.
Yeah, I think both of our arcs kind of... I mean, most of the arcs definitely rely on the depth of the characters involved and the focus on them. But Kanbaru's arc is very much just about really the events surrounding it and the fact that she has this arm and whatnot, and not really necessarily... Well, I forgot what I was going to say, I think. But, yeah, she doesn't have the depth that Itagi or Hanekawa have necessarily, but even despite that, her arc is definitely one of my favorites in Bake and even in the entire series.
Kev, what about you?
Yeah, I'm just looking through the arcs, and I have to say that Surga is a very interesting character. It's one of my favorites ones. It's kind of low-key my best girl in the series. If not for Hitagi's existence, of course, because she's such a cheerful and fun character to observe, but at the same time she was constantly being rejected by Hitagi, by Koyomi, and by Rouka as well in Hana Monogatari. That makes her really tragic in a sense, and at the same time she, as we have seen in Shinobu Mail in second part of YAAAAY Monogatari, she is very observant and a clever girl when she beat down Shinobu in a conversation, which is kind of impossible.
And because who wins an argument with Shinobu? Like, what is that?
Yeah, that was definitely like a huge highlight for me. I think that was a huge come-up moment for her.
Yeah, it kind of made the entire YAAAAY Monogatari for me. Yeah, and it's great, and she's great, and well, Shai, you have mentioned that Surga Monkey is one of your favorite arcs, right?
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's Surga Devil, and it's also one, I guess, in my top 3 of arcs It's here with Hitagi and, for example, and it's just a very touching story of a friendship which gone wrong and how some circumstances may be bigger than you and you can't even accept them. And just the whole tone, just the melancholy surrounding this arc was great and was just another touch for the series. Like, it was unlike any other arc in the series because it was so slow, so melancholic, so touching, and it really made it special for me.
Well, here's my hot take on Kanbaru, which is that I think she is up there with Araragi and Kaiki for like the most psychologically complex character in the series. And I think that gets overlooked a lot because between the amount of like both actual real-time distance between her two arcs and chronological distance, it's really hard to see the continuity of her development between the two of them. And also due to the fact that since Suruga Devil is the chronological last arc in the series, we don't get to see her at all after she's finally solved her issues. But upon re-watching Suruga Monkey recently with the subreddit rewatch, I realized that there's a lot of themes that do carry through, which are specifically her senses of insecurity and guilt. One of the probably the smallest detail that I love the most in the whole series is in the first or second episode of Hana Monogatari. It's on screen for literally 1 second, but she wakes up, and even that long after they defeated the Rainy Devil, she still sleeps with her arm tied to the wall so that it can't take control of her and do anything while she's asleep. The sense of guilt that she carries for all of the shitty things that she's done out of jealousy and anger is a really powerful emotion to me. And the way she relates to Roka is the realization that this vindictive spirit who just wants to collect all of the pieces of the devil is exactly what she could have become if she hadn't met Araragi and gotten the help she needed to overcome that.
I mean, I find it quite interesting that you said that Kanbaru is in your top 3 most developed and most complex characters, if I heard that right. Because, well, I definitely won't argue against the fact that she's a quite well developed and complex character. I think she just, compared to the rest, which are also Hanekawa, Hitagi, Nadeko even, they're as well such developed characters that I wouldn't say Kanbaru necessarily is.
Well, I think those 3 you just mentioned are better written characters than she is, but compared to her, their emotional issues are pretty simple.
Right.
Hers
okay.
are really hard to deal with.
I think that also is interesting to show that even a character we can see the same character, but really your life experiences can kind of be reflected through them in a way that maybe other people can't see them. It's cool to see that there's a lot more, you saw a lot more depth in her character than I would, and then there might be another character with vice versa where I just see more with them, and I think it shows how authentic they are. And since we did get to the 1 hour mark, wanted to do I guess kind of a speed go through of some of the big characters we haven't gotten to yet.
Yeah, let's do that.
So
Yeah,
I guess transitioning, I'll try and be quick. I'll transition since you said Kanbaru might be your second best girl after Senjougahara. If I had to choose one, I have to talk about Nadeko. We briefly mentioned her, but I got to say she might be, if Senjo is best girl and best overall package, I think Nadeko is my favorite character in this story because I just love how we got to her arc. She went from being the most useless character, in my opinion. I think she was kind of useless.
She's so shit in the first season.
She's so shit. Everyone thinks her arc is shit. And for the sake of the story, she's the only one whose problems, she never had to really face up her demons in the first arc, in the first part of the story, and actually better herself. So her arc is shit, and like I feel like it's intentionally supposed to feel unsatisfying, and then just to see how she like takes being cute for granted, how she takes everything superficial about herself for granted, and then it kind of culminates into her just becoming a monster by the end and taking it out on everyone. I thought that was just really fascinating to watch. I think it's great to see that she became like one of the best, like probably my favorite female antagonists in anime. I just love everything about that.
Well, the whole thematic point, so to speak, of her arc is that she refused to face her own demons. Like, she wanted to play the victim and let Araragi swoop in and save her. And because she refused to deal with her own shit, it eventually overtook her and got the better of her and turned her into this monster.
Yeah, I think that was great to see.
It's what happens when you don't accept the fact that everybody has to save themselves.
It's also interesting because, as you have said, her arc in the Monogatari was largely unsatisfying, but just the way how it was revealed that she is such a multi-faced character and constantly wears a mask was really touching and just amazing in its own way, where she snaps in the classroom and just how she, with the help of Kuchinawa, the snake, how she comes in terms with herself, how she comes to realization who she is. Just the sheer amount of progression in this arc is spectacular.
What a great scene too! Like one of the best scenes I've seen. Like great voice acting. Like one of those two real for me lines. Like, "Fuck you, teacher. I'm not doing shit. Like, why are you expecting anything of me?" Love that. Sorry. I think I cut you off on that.
Who, me?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay,
I was getting too into it.
What I was going to say is that what I find one of the most interesting parts of her personality is, or her character, is her kind of strange sense of romance and her love for Koyomi, which is almost kind of based around the shoujo manga stuff she
writes. Yeah,
she writes and reads, because like Koyomi is the big brother of a friend, and they met when they were children, and he talked to her, and it's just also such a setup that could come straight out of a shoujo manga, and in that way, that's I think one of the biggest reasons why she fell for Koyomi, not necessarily because he's the person that he is, but because in a shoujo manga he would be the love interest, and that's what she learned from the manga that she writes. That's what romance is to her, just finding the big savior.
Yeah, she's very delusioned.
Yeah.
I think in her arc, Koyomi himself at one point says in the source material, if this were a rom-com manga, I'd be the love interest to her.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's an important part of her character, and her sense of romance, which is in itself very basic and kind of based around these shoujo stereotypes and tropes.
All right. Coming in for the hot segue, that's really similar to my second best girl, who's Hanekawa, in that through the events of Kizu and Neko, she basically wanted to be the main character of Twilight, where she accidentally discovered that, like, the hot, mysterious loner boy in her class was secretly a vampire, and then she helped save his life, and then he helped save her life. And, like, ostensibly, everything should have ended up with them being together, and then it just kind of didn't.
Yeah, that's such a interesting way it happens. Like, if you started with Kizu Monogatari, you probably would have thought that they would have ended up together.
Right. And it's interesting because everybody else in the series, like even way past when Araragi and Senjougahara become a thing, kind of act as if like they assume that Araragi and Hanekawa should belong to each other. Like everyone says, I'm surprised that you chose Senjo over Hanekawa.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, kind of same after watching all these entries. Sometimes I'm like, what are you doing there? But
there is a good reason for that, because as we have learned through the various arcs, the various conversation between Koyomi and Tsubasa, and also just monologues of Koyomi that basically Tsubasa was too perfect for him, and he wouldn't have handled just the sheer amount of this perfectness, and just entire development of Tsubasa just is about that that even if you're correct doesn't mean you're right, because she was constantly in the way of her adopted parents, just trying to make everything perfect, and as she sees is the right way to do. But it was not always the right way to do, and that's why she created the cat and tried to solve all of her problems with this cat. And there is also one interesting thing, that the entire amount of episodes devoted to Tsubasa, I believe, is 13, which makes it entire core. Just the amount of episodes devoted to Tsubasa, just the amount of time where she got her development.
Tsubasa Monogatari.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, she has more screen time than everybody else except Araragi, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, because she also has a lot more involvement in arcs that aren't even hers. She
shows up at least a little bit in almost every single arc.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to point out about Hanekawa is kind of like what we used to bridge from Sengoku to her, is that she also kind of sees the events of Kizumonogatari kind of like a Twilight story, and in a way she has kind of a vision of the world that's pretty black and white. Like she's a student, so therefore she must study. Basically, that's kind of a big part of her character, and she just kind of does things because they're supposed to be that way. And Kizumonogatari was also a way for her to get out of that mentality and experience a sort of big fantasy story. So she's in that way a character that has kind of a black and white worldview, but also definitely wants to kind of escape from that worldview, even though she deluded herself into that in a way.
Yeah, and the entire Neko Monogatari White Tsubasa Tiger was about her discovering herself, and all those conversations long-winded with Hitage about flavor, about taste, were also aimed at this very development, where she tried to come in terms with herself and try to understand. It's also one of my favorite arcs, probably the third one after Hitage and Surrogate Evil, because it's just so good.
Well, since we were talking about our second best girl, and I didn't have any response to that yet, it actually is Ougi for me, even though
Praise Ougi.
Even though we haven't seen that much of her, and I think it's just because she intrigues me, and I'm a big sucker for characters that intrigue me.
She's scary, man.
I love her. I love her.
I love mysterious characters. It's why Ben 10 is one of my favorites from the Eccentric family. But it's hard to get a grasp on her, and you're not sure what she is, because that's what makes her so compelling to me. And it's been a while since I've watched Owari Monogatari, because I have rewatched the series up until Owari at some point, and I was planning on rewatching Owari right before the second part aired. So it's been the longest time since I've watched that. But yeah, as a character, she intrigues me, and that makes her so compelling for me.
Well, even if you're not watching Ougi, she's probably watching you. At least that's the impression I get from her. I love her. She's a great she's a kind of an antagonist, but you aren't really sure. And that's another.
She's definitely an antagonist.
She is,
at
but
this point.
we haven't seen her she hasn't stabbed Araragi, and that's kind of like a handshake in Monogatari. If you're not brutally assaulting Araragi, you haven't really talked to him. So, so she's I love how she messes with him. She messes with us. She just is that force of chaos character, and she's so much fun to watch. No one else I'd rather watch locked up in a classroom for an hour-long episode.
I think she might be the best executed character in the series, and I know at this point I've come up with 3 different ways to say best character, but not actually. But the way she first appears is at the beginning of the second arc of second season, she's just like there, and Araragi is talking to her as if we should already know who she is and why she exists. She's just dropped into the middle, and we're just expected to accept that she's there. Just like all of the other characters in the show just suddenly discover she exists and accepts that she's there.
She hits like a bomb in a way, because she's just kind of she suddenly appears and she shakes things up, and you don't even know if she's the antagonist or what her intentions are, which I'm sure Owari Part 2 will kind of delve into. But that's what makes it so hard to analyze, because you don't know what she is, you don't know why she does what she does.
There are several hints being dropped upon what she is. Like there is a theory that she's actually that swirling storm of darkness, which happened in Shinobu time, and actually all her actions kind of point out that she's some kind of purifier who just tries to
create balance.
Put everything in the just put everything in the balance. Like she egged Nadeko in second season and tried to make her a goddess in the shrine, which kind of coincides with some of the ideas of Gain, I believe. And and also she tried to, if she's darkness, she tried to chase Mayoi, because she kind of how to say it? She
fucks things up. You don't know why, actually.
but just by the sheer charisma that Ougi possesses, it's just she's just so, as a doctor has said, just too compelling to watch.
Yeah. Cheese?
Well, go ahead.
Oh no, you go first.
Okay, so a couple months ago, after I watched Owari, I rewatched all of second season, and I was so proud of myself because I felt like I finally hit on not what she is or why she does things, because I still have no idea about that, but what she's trying to do, which is she's trying to isolate Araragi for some reason. Like, she, as the Ball of Darkness gets rid of Hachikuji, she manipulates Nadeko into becoming the goddess, which leads to her having to exit the harem and destroying Araragi's sense of self. In Suki, it's very subtly but also heavily implied that she used her crazy mind control powers to make Tadatsuru kidnap the Fire Sisters in Kanbaru. And in the course of that, if Yotsugi hadn't seen through it, then Araragi wanted to negotiate, which would have ended up with him losing Yotsugi as well. So,
and that also ties in with Hitagi having an arc in Owari Monogatari, because that actually, now that you mention it, that's quite interesting.
Well, that's the last one, is that it's because of Ougi that he went to the temple in the last episode of Koyomi Monogatari instead of going to meet Senjougahara like he was supposed to. And that fact, A, got him dead, and B, is probably going to put a pretty big wedge between him and Senjougahara in the final season.
She's going to be pretty pissed off that he got dead. I think if I know anything, she's not happy about that.
Right, no. And I'm actually keeping that in mind. It's hard for me to say that Ougi is really an antagonist, because at the point of Owari Monogatari, Koyomi is still a person that really tries to save others for himself. Even if it's less than Mbake, he still has that part of him. And by taking those others away, he's going to need to find another way to get his self-worth. And maybe that's kind of what Ougi is tying into. And she's there to do something to Koyomi's development and to help him, or well, maybe not in a right way, and maybe not even in a way that helps him. But it seems like she's definitely doing something to develop Koyomi in some kind of way that either benefits Koyomi himself or benefits her, whatever she is.
So if Ougi is not an antagonist, so who is?
Gain. I mean, I think Ougi is an antagonist. I think Guyan is also an antagonist. It's hard to say which of them is more dangerous.
I lean towards Guyan.
I'd say Guyan because she killed him.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty big point
Big,
against her.
huge, just a shot in the dark, but she killed him, so I'd say he is dead.
Ougi is kind of more of a neutral force that's using Guyan for what she's going to achieve.
Well, Guyan is trying to fight against Ougi, though, is what she implies during the last episode of Koyomi. She says that, like, something about there being two sides, and it's like her versus the darkness, and in order for her to, like, defeat the darkness, Araragi has to be out of the way.
Right, because Ougi is, she seems like to be kind of all-knowing in a way.
Yeah.
So probably she even if she lied about that, she wanted to happen, whatever happened. And I think, yeah, like I said before, she's just using Guyan for whatever she's trying to achieve. Guyan is doing it from a point that antagonizes Koyomi, but I don't think Ougi is necessarily doing that, even if she is the reason that he got killed.
I believe Guyan does the right thing, just in her own way, because we actually care about Koyomi, so we didn't say it. But probably Guyan probably has some bigger picture that we cannot grasp just now. So yeah, maybe she's right. Maybe Ougi is right. We don't know.
She's kind of looking out for the town, right? Like, I get the impression she's like trying to think of the greater good. So we can see the logic behind her actions.
Yeah, she wants to restore the balance that was offset by the first Oddity Slayer showing up above the shrine.
There's no evil character in the show, I think. I think it's just characters being opposed to whatever Koyomi is or is doing, and characters that are not.
But what about Kaiki?
Kaiki is also in.
Kaiki is an asshole with a heart of gold.
I love Kaiki. I have to say, I love him a lot more as a anti-hero than I do as an antagonist.
Oh yeah.
Because he was great as he was great as an anti-hero, because I love that scene where he's debating whether or not to help Senjougahara. Like, we always took Araragi helping people for granted, and Kaiki was really actually sitting there thinking, like, oh, what's in it for me? Like, what can I get?
I can justify doing this to myself.
Yeah. And so, yeah.
I also really liked the way how he approached it and the solution he came to. Just one reason that kinda overrided everything else we wrote.
I think in Nisu Monogatari also, like you said, Kaiki he's not a villain, but in Nisu Monogatari, Karen is definitely under the impression that Kaiki is the big villain to beat and the bad guy. And because she has such a basic sense of good and bad, that really contrasts with Kaiki just not really doing things to fuck up people, but just doing things because he wants to make some money. He's doing it, yeah. He's not evil, he's just he doesn't give a shit and just wants to make money. He's fake. He's a petty villain, like Kaganui says at one point. And that's a big part of his character and a big part of the themes of justice in Nisu Monogatari is that Kaiki isn't a villain. He's more of a chaotic neutral in a way.
Chaotic neutral. I like it.
I like that. I think we pretty much covered everyone. We want to talk about everyone we want to talk about them for hours. But I think
Oshino.
We left off. Oh, I love Oshino, but we didn't talk about Shinobu. Throw 4 Senjougahara bags in a room and see if Shinobu gets brought up. Like, guess not.
Yes.
I like both of them, but we can talk about them both. Go forth.
I mean, Oshino, there's not a lot to say because he's just so mysterious.
Huge bro, love him.
Huge bro, probably the most OP character in the whole series, actually, because he stole fucking Kishot's heart without her even noticing.
Mr. Steal Your Girl. Yo.
Yeah, he blocked three hunters. He blocked them in one move. So
yeah,
he's really OP, which is interesting.
I'm sure he'll be back for Owari season 2.
Oh, definitely. I think it was in the trailer even.
Oh, really?
So yeah.
Well, there goes that surprise. But yeah, so he's a bro. I love one of my favorite parts of the series is a conversation he had with Araragi, I think in the Tsubasa Cat arc, I think that's what it's called, where he's talking about where Araragi said something like, "Oh, her parents are so terrible," and he was like, and he broke down like, what would it be like to live with someone so perfect that they remind you of your flaws? Like, great conversation. Love that.
Yeah.
Would love to see him again. He has a cool, like, Cowboy Bebop-like theme.
Yeah.
Hope to see him back, just some, like, 40-year-old dude barely wearing a shirt, hanging out in a cram school, talking with some high schoolers. That's what I want to see.
He's just so laid back.
He's chill. He's a chill dude.
He even adopted a vampire who some
We're
people
going to talk about next.
think is best girl.
Like 2 months ago, I would have laughed at that, but I can actually kind of see it now. Ever since I read Kizu, I finally understand why people like her.
I think she's, like, really interesting because I love the concept behind Shinobu. Like, I love her backstory. I love her backstory, like the one before we even get
Backstory.
with, like, Shinobu time.
Like the 200 years ago backstory?
Yeah, like, I think that's really cool. I think she's, like, fun-ish, but, like, she has a great character design. Like, I love all the small elements of her. But when you put her together, I'm not even, like, remotely interested. She's the kind of character who, whenever she's on screen, I'm looking at the other person. Like, when she's on screen with Araragi, I'm paying attention to him. When she has the cool scene in Orari Season 2 with Kanbaru, I'm like, wow, look how great Kanbaru is in it. And then Shinobu showed up. Like, I just can't, like, connect with her somehow.
Yeah, and what also I find that Shinobu is kind of what puts her a bit below some of the others is the fact that most of her importance in the series thematically is just, again, related to Koyomi, and everything she represents in the series is just part of what Koyomi represents in the series, and in that way, yeah, she's just kind of part of whatever Koyomi is, and as a character herself, she is not very complex or necessarily unique or well written. Well, I mean, she's unique in a way, but
it's just she gets lost amongst everyone.
Yeah, she's just
and she shouldn't,
because she's really important.
Even the arcs focusing on her are almost always just end up being important to Koyomi, not necessarily to her as a character.
Yeah, she's like the only non-human main character who has like, she should stand out from everyone, and she doesn't. And I think that's saying something, at least to me.
Well, I was never a really big fan of her until, like I said, I read the Kizu novel. And then in the subreddit rewatch, like yesterday, we did like the first big scene where she's in the bathtub with Araragi and she has her formal introduction. And that scene blew me away. Like, suddenly, I think it's one of the best of the entire series. So I'm really curious to see how I'll look at her as I continue to rewatch it now.
Well, that's kind of, I mean, in Kizu and like the early parts of Nisei, which is really just contrast to Kizu, it's great. She's fantastic and it's really interesting. But throughout the series, from Nisei to Owari, where we are now, she just doesn't do much anymore. Really, she's just kind of there to create a narrative at times, and at other times just to be part of Koyomi's development, but in herself, she doesn't have as much going for her as some of the other characters do.
That's a good way of putting it. I agree with that.
Personally, I just don't feel like she's a character on her own, just because she's such an inseparable part of Koyomi in general, and I just fail to see her as a character, and almost all of her arcs are just observing her past and how she was in that past, and her actions and such. It's just not as interesting, and just in general, she's an oddity herself. She's a vampire, and she just, for me personally, once again, just doesn't stand the same ground as other girls or characters. She just kind of exists apart from like all the girls, apart from Koyomi. Sometimes, but I just don't feel anything towards her. She's just kind of there.
If you compare it to the amount of screen time she gets, she just feels lacking, because she gets more screen time than some of the other characters, and they just don't do that much with it. It's just mostly just either being part of Koyomi, like I said, or just being kind of fun interactions, I suppose. But she, as a character, she she doesn't mean much in a way, apart from what she means in Koyomi's arc and Koyomi's whole character thing.
Yeah, about characters who feel pointless, kinda. I absolutely adore Yotsugi's design. It's like my favorite of the series.
Peace.
Yeah,
My favorite meme.
I just in love with that. But at the same time, I cannot help but think she is just kind of a waste of a character. And her own arc, Yotsugi Doll, was essentially an arc about Koyomi, once again, as usual. And her role was there just to provide some kind of guidance, and not much.
But yay, peace. That's like, I love that. But, well, after the wrecking of Shinobu, I guess now we got to the 130 part, but I want to cuck the Origaru pod, which went over, and we're gonna do it live with some super hot fire questions. Obviously, the only thing that matters is just asking, what is your favorite OP? Which is the most important question. So I guess we'll go down the line. Whoops, favorite OP?
Staple. Definitely.
All right, I respect it.
Kind of same. I think I'm gonna agree with that. I like that OP a lot. Okay, Cav?
Stable, but same time, Ambivalent World is also one of my favorite ones.
That's a good one too. Now I'm seeing the drawbacks of having 4 Senjo fans in a room, and so.
Don't worry, I have a different answer.
Okay, it's all on you.
Okay, Marshmallow Justice for the music, but Delusion Express for everything else.
That's pretty cool. I love Marshmallow Justice. I think it gets overshadowed by Platinum Disco a lot because it's not as cute, but I love the visuals and the song, and I love that one too. That's a great one.
That can basically be said for any OP that's getting overshadowed by.
Oh, and Kogarashi Sentiment for the memes.
Kogarashi Sentiment is for the memes. It's fantastic anyway.
Yeah, it's fantastic, really.
It's my number 3. 2 would be Mathemagics. Anyway, go on.
Sha, you.
Oh, I'm so bad. Okay, I'm gonna do a hot take. I'm gonna say the I don't even know the name of it. I think it's the Ougi OP.
Perfect Black. Decent Black.
I love
Decent
that.
Black.
I love that because it's not really different from the other OPs, but it feels different with Ougi. Like I love her song. I love the visuals. It just comes together. I don't know. I love that one.
Her dumb Sherlock Holmes cosplay.
Yeah, Sherlock Holmes in like the TV that goes on for Infinity. That's just what you need is Ougi for Infinity with Sherlock Holmes. Perfection. But I'm actually not as like passionate about the OPs because I'm too busy listening to the Bake Monogatari ED on repeat. Forever, which is like easily my favorite ED in anime. Like nothing has come close to that.
Oh.
Yeah, I did that. Threw down the gauntlet.
I was appreciating during this recent rewatch just how well they set up the Starry Sky scene, because every single arc before that ends with like an ED playover. So even if you skip the EDs, you always hear it. And you always see like the opening lyrics about the Summer Triangle. And then when episode 12 comes around and she literally, like it says in the song, points out the Summer Triangle, it's the best moment.
It's so fantastic. I love the song to it. I love the piano. I love it. I love the visuals. I love it.
It stands tall above the rest for me too as number 1 for ED.
Okay, there is my unpopular opinion, but I actually don't really like any endings for Monogatari.
That is the line. That is it. We've gone too far. No.
I'm sorry.
Cut the podcast off right now.
I'm sorry.
The podcast was a mistake. No, but that's pretty interesting. I like. So I guess this ties in. We're talking about like the ED and how much it enhanced the Starry Sky scene. Do you think it enhanced the scene for you, or did it have any impact on that?
I just feel it. Yeah, it kind of enhanced, but at the same time, it wasn't that important for me because the scene was just so powerful on its own, and just the song itself, Kimi no Shonai Monogatari, doesn't touch me, I guess, as some other songs.
That is fair.
Yeah, I mean, you did say that you like none of the ED in the series, and I would say that apart from Kimi no Shonai, they are not as great as the OP. I think.
Yeah.
I'd agree.
I think most of the other
The
EDs
Nisei
are
one is
kind of
catchy,
okay. The
that's
Nisei
it.
one would definitely be my second favorite, but other than that, I don't even remember most of them.
I don't even
Right.
remember. Yeah, I don't remember any of them except the Bake Monogatari one. But I'm glad they put it all in. You know, if you're gonna throw it all in one basket, make the best DD in anime for me. So like, do it big. So I guess like if we want, I think we can do this quick. We've been doing it good, and we have to cut Cav off before he gets crazy over there. But so if I'd like the question, if you were Shinbu, like what would you change? Like if you could change one thing in the series, what would you change?
Can I switch that question to if I were Nisio scene?
You can, if you
Sure.
want to be like go full like source fag whole scene on it. Go for it.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just keep it quick then. Bake is the best part of the series, in my opinion, and I think definitely later on, and definitely in second season, I think most of the arcs get too grand, like time travel gets involved and whatnot, and I'd like it to go back to a little more of the more personal and the smaller arcs. So that would be my.
I can get behind that. I like that. Cav, it's on you.
My actually point is really simple. Just to reduce a bit Kayami's perversion, because it could be annoying, and just to reduce overall level of fetishes, because when Yotsugi was stepping on Kayami's face, it got kind of uncomfortable.
I think we need to go full Siren with the fetishes and turn them up. So I'm going in the opposite direction.
Aside from like cut out the uncomfortable incest, I think the only thing I can imagine even wanting to change about the series is give Senjougahara more screen
That's what
time.
I was
Like, come
gonna
on.
say. Just bring
Yeah.
back Gahara. Senjo Monogatari, please.
I hope Owari Season 2 contains Hitagi POV arc. I know it contains a Hitagi arc, but
Mhm.
she's like the only big character whose perspective we haven't actually gotten to see.
Yeah, I think that would be pretty interesting too, especially since she's the Bae and all. Like, would love to
Yeah.
see her perspective on things.
Right.
Mhm.
So,
Yep.
I guess I'll go. This is, since you stole mine, I'm coming up with this on the fly. This is, like, the one thing that bothers me, and I totally respect her decision as an artist, but I want Maya Sakamoto to sing an OP. I just want
Oh shit, yeah.
I just want her to sing an OP. Like, I get
She's
it.
such a good singer.
She's an amazing singer. I get it. She's an artist. Like, I don't have the talent to understand that sphere of, like, not singing and shit. Like, I just do the R anime sing. So, like, I don't have, like, standards for my voice. But, like, I just want her to sing an OP, even if it's as Shinobu. Like, we get it from all the other characters, and it's such a nice touch to it. Like, please just sing an OP or ED. Just sing one. Please. I'm begging you.
And in addition to that, if the last arc of the series, Koyomi Reverse, does not have Kamiya Hiroshi singing the OP, I'm gonna riot.
It's getting a 1. Like, if he's not singing, it gets a 1. Better yet,
Yeah.
have him rap the OP.
Well, he can sing. He even has his own CDs.
Oh, he
So,
can
yeah.
sing? Why are
Yep.
these guys
There
who
we
can
go.
actually sing holding out on us? Come on, guys. Like, I hope they're not going to hear this, but if you do, like, come on, guys. Like, come sing for us. And I guess,
Yeah.
since after my gripes about wanting people to sing, do you guys have anything else you want to add?
Not really.
No.
Not really? Well, we had a super fun, super long podcast. Sorry to all the Shinobu fans. Maybe she'll get good next season. But I guess on that note, we're signing off.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks for
See ya.
listening.